Yeah. At one time, it was further up the river. And there you've got the beautiful waterfall there.
Well, to get from the castle to the mill, you mean they had to walk around? Don't you think there was a passageway underneath?
No, I don't think there was a passageway. We used to think there was a possibility of that. But to do that, you'd have to go right way down, many feet below the level of the courtyard, you see, and come up again. It doesn't really make sense. But to the left of that mill, you can't see it from this angle, there is a cavern there with an arch, which has been filled in with brick and stone. And some people used to think that was where you would get into the mill. But it is thought now that is where they stationed the wagons for the bags of corn and flour and so on.
Don't you think that in that room that was sealed there might have been stairs or some way to get up to the main castle?
You're a romantic, aren't you? But you may be right. I suppose one day we'll have to try.
Inside, Madame Tussauds Museum has created wax figures portraying the actual people involved in a weekend party honoring the Prince of Wales in 1898. A large portion of the furniture and fittings in the rooms were actually here in 1898, and the remainder are exact copies based on photographs taken at the time. The state dining room was a late addition to the castle, and the room has witnessed many distinguished diners over the years, including earls, kings, and queens. The Great Hall is the most impressive area of the castle, adorned with original antiques and exact replicas of over 1,000 pieces of arms and armor. The armor was worn by the ordinary private soldiers, and some of the breastplates and helmets are very heavy, made to stop musket balls fired at very short range. The horses carried a full load of armor themselves and had to be exceptionally strong to sustain a couple of 100 pounds of man and steel. One of the highlights for visitors is seeing the famous Red Knight, who makes his appearance daily around 1 o'clock. He'll be happy to explain the pieces of armor he's wearing and the history behind it. Is an excellent side trip from London. Our next stop is Stratford-upon-Avon, an easy train ride from London on the Shakespeare Express.
The town of Stratford-upon-Avon is probably one of the most popular tourist destinations outside of London, and probably best known as the place where William Shakespeare lived and died. Certain areas of the town are preserved almost as they were in the 16th century, and I think it's one of the most picturesque areas in England.
For its size, Stratford-upon-Avon has a greater concentration of historic buildings than any other English town. Almost everything is within walking distance, and convenient tour buses run all day to the attractions outside of the area. One popular thing to do is rent a canoe or a small boat for a trip up and down the river. I took a ride with Roger Thompson of the Tourist Board, who explained the importance of William Shakespeare to the history of the area.
Well, as you know, Laura, Stratford-on-Avon and Shakespeare are almost synonymous. This really is the beginning of the story. This is the house that we assume Shakespeare was born in. Nobody says he was born here, because just like your birth certificate, it doesn't say the house you were born, the town, yes, but not the house. This, however, was the main home of Shakespeare's father and mother, and John Shakespeare, William's father, filled every post on our town council here, from ale taster to chamberlain or mayor, so it's quite an important family in the town.
Besides William Shakespeare's birthplace, the grounds of his retirement home and other family homes are also open to the public. Roger told me a little more about other buildings in the area.
When you look around you, to me, Laura, this is a lovely example of what towns like Stratford are all about, because you've not just got Tudor architecture here, you've also got a lovely example of Georgian architecture, and here to your left again, a lovely example of Victorian. So you've got three periods of architecture nicely blended together.
Other popular Shakespearean homes include the thatched roof house of his wife, Anne Hathaway, and the house of his mother, Mary Arden. In review, take the Shakespeare Express train from London to Stratford-upon-Avon. And here's a list of the most popular things to see in town. At night, visit the Royal Theatre, where you can see a Shakespearean play performed exactly as it was in Shakespeare's time. Near Stratford-upon-Avon is Ragley Hall, the beautiful 17th century home of Lord Hertford and his family. The home has been in his family for over 300 years. The grounds are beautifully landscaped, and the large building in which Lord and Lady Hertford and their children live is open for public tours. I talked with Lord Hertford about the estate.
Could you give me a brief history on the house itself?
It's 304 years old, built 1680, and it's belonged to my family ever since.
And you've lived in the house all the time?
No, my first 7 years were wasted. We lived, my parents and I lived 3 miles away. But we moved in here when I was 7, and I actually became the owner of Ragley 2 years later when I was only 9 years old.
Really?
I inherited this house in 1940. The great thing about inheriting a huge and derelict house, which is actually at the time a hospital, in 1940, is that from that point things have to get better. They couldn't possibly get worse.
Why was it a hospital?
And because it was needed during the war.
And you told me earlier about after the war that it was completely derelict and was almost demolished.
It was so derelict that my trustees wanted to sell it to a firm of demolition contractors. That's how bad it was. But I was convinced that we could live here. And eventually I met a gal who agreed with me, and immediately after our wedding, which was 28 years ago, we moved in.
And now it's open to the public?
Yes, has been for 25 years.
You have quite a few antiques in the house.
Oh, a lot, yes.
Any with a special history?
Well, it's most famous, I think, for the Great Hall, the entrance hall, which has the most wonderful baroque glasswork in England, designed by Gibbs in 1750. And our collection of portraits by Sir Joshua Reynolds is quite special. And, of course, the new thing that's attracting a lot of visitors these days is the new mural by Graham Rust.
Tell me about that.
Well, he began painting it in 1969, and he finished it last year.
14 years.
14 years of work. Not, to be honest, he didn't work all the time. He worked here about 1 week a month, and the other 3 weeks he went away to earn what he called rail money elsewhere. Apparently what I paid him didn't really count.
In the mural, you have pictures painted in of you and your family.
All our 4 children, together with their godfathers and godmothers.
And you pointed out in the mural that there was a special little flying saucer. Tell me that story.
Simply because my wife's aunt believes that flying saucers are coming to the world to rescue us, which I should think we sorely need, don't we? And she said she would only be painted in the mural if we put in a flying saucer, so we did. But what I think is so entirely typical is that she is the only person who's seen it. She always is, poor love. Nobody else ever looks.
Be sure to visit Ragley Hall near Stratford-upon-Avon. For the 18 to 35-year-old traveler on a limited budget, here's a special way to see England and other parts of the world that's economical but more fun than camping. Top Deck Tours has custom-built double-decker buses with sleeping and cooking facilities on board. You travel for a couple of weeks at a time, and you can decide for yourself where you want to go and what you want to see. Accommodations in England come in all prices and sizes. This is an example of a top-of-the-line first-class room, but it does have first-class prices. Rooms with more moderate prices have all the facilities but are generally more modest in decor. You get what you pay for. Where to Stay London is a good guide from the London Tourist Board, and do reserve ahead of time. Besides hotels and motels, everything from bed and breakfast inns to youth hostels are available, but you will share a bathroom. There's a noticeable difference in room vocabulary, so if you want a room with 2 beds, ask for a twin, not a double. English bathrooms have extra big bathtubs, but you'll rarely find showers except in the best hotels. The following is a list of general information you'll find useful for a visit to England. You'll need a valid passport. No visa and no vaccination, and do declare any tobacco or alcohol. The two airports serving London are Heathrow and Gatwick. Taxis to the city are convenient but expensive. It's cheaper to take the train. There's no camping allowed in the city parks, and all campgrounds are located outside the city. Children are not allowed in pubs, but good babysitting services are available. Be sure to bring rainwear and a jacket, even in the summer. Pay telephones can be confusing. Just wait to insert your money until after the connection is made and you hear the beeps. For overseas calls, be wary of hotel surcharges or call from an international telephone bureau. The embassies and consulates can help you with any of these problems. Put your valuables in the hotel safe, be wary of pickpockets, and always use traveler's checks. If you rent a car, learn the traffic signs and laws, and don't drink and drive. Electric current is 220 volts, so take a converter with British adapters. For emergencies, dial 999 or contact Traveler's Aid at Victoria Station. People speak English with a sprinkling of slang and euphemisms. The unit of currency is the British pound, and banks have the best exchange rates. Bobbies are the unarmed police force, and do address them as constable in person. Hotels and restaurants often add a service charge, otherwise tip approximately 15%. Barman will take a drink instead of a tip and give porters approximately 50 pence per bag. Public toilets are labeled as follows, and don't expect anyone to know what a restroom is. A queue is the British word for a line. Always go to the end. It is safe to drink the water all over Great Britain. Be sure to reconfirm your return flight and allow yourself extra time at the airport.
Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing a little bit of England with me today. And if you're planning a trip, maybe it will save you a little time, trouble, and money. And if you've already been, I hope it brought back a few nice memories for you. From London, I'm Laura Mackenzie. Bye-bye.